Well, it is a beautiful morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Olive Monica Najima, and I'm hoping that you are welcoming this new... Oh, wait a minute. Not yet. Anyway, I hope that you have a beautiful morning. I am excited about the new month, so I'm even moving way past the calendar is moving. But anyway, this is Good Morning Uganda, where we give you insights into many things every single morning. So make it a plot to be with us every single morning from 6:30 to 9 a.m. I'm joined by Joram Paul Sonko and of course Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono and Chantal Olive Akandinda. And as we launch into the day, there are so many things that have caught our attention this morning, and of course one of them is the sad news that happened in Masaka, where two pupils in Kasana Primary School died due to a school fire. Now last week we had a conversation regarding the same about school fires when St. Teresa Primary School in Chisubi caught fire, but the good news is that there were no fatalities. The same happened in Kamuli Primary School, where a dormitory for P7 pupils caught fire and still there were no fatalities. But it wasn't the same case in Masaka, as some pupils were burnt to death, died after the fire, and of course others were referred to Chirudu here in Kampala because they had severe injuries. But before we get into that, I would like to check on the team, and I'll start with Chirabo. Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm lovely. How are you?
I'm very fine. Thanking God for the gift of life. You've just talked of a fire. Very unfortunate, sudden incident when we see school fires again increasing. Last week you said we did have one. Even the previous week we had a school fire, and here we are with a fire. But why am I grateful to God for the gift of life? In Impich there's an accident that claimed 3 people when a truck rammed into an evening lesson place where they usually gather, and it claimed lives. So the fact that you use the road every day, most of the hours where sometimes you drive when some people are even drunk, maybe they are rushing there from bars, and the Lord brings you safe in this Uganda, Monday to Friday,
that's true.
Year to where we are, month to month. One will be grateful for the life that the Lord has given you.
And in a spirit of gratefulness for life, good morning, Joram Paul.
Oh, good morning, Monica. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great and grateful for life.
Today is the 31st of October. I think things fast. It's the last day of the month.
Yes.
And looking back at a month that has actually been filled up with lots of memories, but also sadly coming to an end with such events is something that we would definitely say we wish God gives us a great November and December, because these are hard times, especially coming in a time when students are likely to be getting even their holidays. So you pretty much want to think about how incidents like accidents, and of course not only that, fires that have actually been rocking third term will affect students, trauma, and then also how they will actually affect parents who have actually lost their children, and all who have actually got their children, escape 1 or 2 case scenarios in schools. But well, the month, besides it being more rainy than some of the other months, I want to say, well, we only thank God that we are this far. But for incidents such as that actually happened along Masaka, you can only say we need to be more vigilant as everybody, society more so, because it does seem like this is something that is a collective effort if we are to put an end to such situations.
I agree. It's really sad that one's child loses their life at school due to a fire. And we've had these conversations here, and all through the years, from when we had the first major fire at Budo Junior School in 2008, we have been re-echoing the same conversation. But something is not being done right, and because of that we keep losing students or property to fires every single year, which is really sad because it sets everyone back. It sets the school back, it sets the students back, even the parents, because imagine now you have to deal with buying new property, but for the parents that lost their children, you can never ever, there is no way you can reverse that. You cannot have your child back, and I
you
find
know
that really concerning.
Monica, that most of these schools are not insured. They are not in insurance. So when fire gets it, it may mean the end, or parents having to go through a lot of inconveniences. Very few schools are insured in Uganda. We are not so much into insurance as such. Schools, businesses, shops get destroyed, and the person may go back to zero.
But anyway, how are you this morning, Miss Chantal Olive?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing, Olive?
I'm great.
Well, I've been listening to the conversation here, and it's very sad. Just to add into what Shirabo is saying, yes, we may not have the assurance that brings back lives. However, we can try and minimize the damage, or the overall damage that comes with some of these catastrophes that we face. For example, if the school was insured, then you would know that some things could be actually put back together. But also, to the detail of the story and how these kids couldn't actually get, some of these kids could not get attention, the medical attention they were supposed to get, and had to be brought to Chirudu. That is something that we need to, that needs to, refocus us onto making sure that the facilities that are in these different places that are not in the capital have actually what it takes to take care of something that shouldn't, that shouldn't be like that. That's where my heart is right now. My heart is on, let's have facilities put in place. How do you fail to have an ambulance to, to move people from one place to another, but you're a hospital?
So Dr. Tumusime of Masaka Hospital said that despite having 2 ambulances parked in the hospital yard, they could not, they were not available. I don't know what he means. Maybe they were not in good working condition to transport the burn victims to Chirudu, where they could get medical attention. And he also mentioned that despite having specialists that can handle burn injuries, the hospital is not well equipped. Their burn unit is not well equipped. So after 10 hours of trying so hard to save the lives of these 2 pupils, they failed and they lost their lives. And of course, they had to refer the others to Chirudu Hospital here in Kampala. Really sad way to start the day, but for the parents that lost their children, our hearts and condolences, our prayers go out to you. We hope that you find grace and that you find some bit of healing. I know that cannot even happen because children have been lost, but may the good Lord comfort you. Yeah, here in Good Morning Uganda, we move on and delve into the local news stories right now.
Well, we begin with the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, the Right Honorable Robina Nabbanja, who has concluded her mobilization campaign for farmers on the 6th policy proposal of production, multiplication, distribution, certification of seeds and stocking materials. Other policies include disease control, agricultural mechanization and irrigation, farmer education and mobilization, in addition to partnerships with big landowners and interventions in the fisheries sector.
Now, speaking matters, school fire in Masaka. 2 pupils of Kasana Junior School in Nyendo Mukungwe Division, Masaka City, have died and 11 others were injured in a fire that burnt down the school dormitory. The acting Greater Masaka police spokesperson Jamada Wandera confirmed the incident. Police preliminary investigations indicate that the fire that gutted the dormitory of Kasana Junior School could have been caused by a short circuit. 2 people died in the incident and 11 were injured. It is alleged that shortly after the fire outbreak, dozens of parents rushed to the school to check on their children. The leadership of the school asked parents to stay calm.
And now to politics. There has been disagreements among Forum for Democratic Change party members over the alleged state house money that came in the party during the 2021 general elections. The money seems to have affected the party leadership structure. Aggrieved members conduct business outside the party headquarters at Najjanankumbi, and they sit at Katonga Road, the office of the People's Government. A tough decision for NEC, that is the National Executive Committee of the party, has recalled the resolutions that established the People's Government. FDC President Patrick Oboy Amriat has clarified that there are no factions within FDC, and whatever Lukwago and Semuju are doing is self-contentment. Patrick Oboy Amriat has called upon members who have defied the Najjanankumbi leadership that there is still room for dialogue. Meanwhile, on the linked election commission LC elections roadmap, Amriat said that they will maneuver and see that the party can stand to win.
Moving on, the government of Uganda and the government of South Sudan have agreed to halt land-related transactions with immediate effect along border districts of Yumbe, Koboko and Moyo. This follows long-standing land wrangles among citizens of both countries living on the border line. The cross-border security meeting resolved resurveying of the country's territory. The cross-border security meeting held at Bobili in Moyo district involved two parties, that of South Sudan, led by Central Equatorial Province Governor, and Uganda team, led by State Minister for Defense Oleru Huda, to address the long-standing rift between locals living on the Uganda-South Sudan border line. These wrangles emanate from land transactions and ownership. The parties resolved to hold all land transactions and agreed to resurvey border lines. Well, that's it for our local news stories. Now we delve into international stories.
On the international scene, the Palestine Red Crescent Society says Israeli artillery and air attacks near the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City is causing fear and panic among the displaced civilians and health workers. Israeli bombardments have been reported across the besieged territory as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejects calls for a ceasefire with Hamas. The Indonesia hospital in Gaza reports a third strike near the facility early today, hours after the Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital said an Israeli attack caused damage and injuries. United Nations officials appealed to the Security Council for a ceasefire as the head of UNICEF warns that more than 420 children are being killed or injured in Gaza every day. At least 8,306 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza in Israeli attacks since 7th October, while more than 1,400 people have been killed in Israel. And away from that, after more than 4 weeks of testimony in former President Donald Trump's New York City fraud trial, he and 3 of his adult kids will soon be called to court to testify in the case, attorneys for New York Attorney General Letitia James said on Friday. Now, James's team has long indicated Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump and Ivanka Trump would be questioned on the stand on Friday. An attorney for James said the state will rest its case after they testify. James's office expects to call Donald Trump Jr. to the stand on Wednesday, that is 1st November, Eric Trump on Thursday, 2nd November, and Ivanka Trump next Wednesday, 8th November. Ivanka was originally set to testify on November 3rd, but her testimony was pushed back, the court said yesterday. Friday, November 3rd, will now be reserved for further questioning of Eric Trump if it's needed. Assuming the revised schedule holds, Donald Trump will be called to testify under oath on Monday, November 6th. And moving on, King Charles and his wife Camilla are on a 4-day state visit to Kenya, where he will acknowledge painful aspects of the UK's colonial past. More than 10,000 people were killed and others tortured during the brutal suppression of the Mau Mau uprising in the 1950s, one of the British Empire's bloodiest insurgencies. In 2013, Britain expressed great regret and paid out $24 million to more than 5,000 people, but some feel that didn't go far enough. One of those is a 90-year-old Agnes Muthoni. With a steady stride despite a stoop, she leads up to the grave site at her home in Shamata, central Kenya. She plucks weeds that have grown next to her husband's grave. Elijah Kinyua died 2 years ago, aged 93. He was also known as General Bahati and, like his wife, was a fighter during the bloody uprising against the British Empire's colonial government in the 1950s. Now, speaking matters climate, human fossil fuel emissions are threatening a key climate threshold twice as quickly as previously thought, a new report says. Researchers say that 1.5 degrees Celsius limit could be continually breached by 2029 rather than the mid-2030s. They say record emissions of carbon dioxide over the past 3 years are a key factor. They also point to having a better understanding of how the burning of fossil fuels affects the atmosphere. After a year of unprecedented heat, the world's hottest month recorded in July, temperatures for 2023 as a whole are expected to be close to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level before the world first started heavily using coal, oil and gas around 1850. While this may be a one-off, scientists are worried that soon the world will have emitted enough greenhouse gases to keep temperatures at this level for far longer. That is it for climate news and also what is happening internationally.
Thank you so much for that report. Now, Jerome Tolson takes us through the press review for this morning.
And of course, the front pages of the New Vision and the Daily Monitor today in our local dailies, of which I start with the New Vision. The national IDs, red flag on 2026 polls. Big report in there, mass enrollment of 17 million Ugandans hangs in balance. The New Vision is giving you more details of the same. Now, society, stay-at-home mothers want monthly salary. Big conversation in there from the New Vision. Then as well, how I am coping with loss of child, her vision. Read about the same in the New Vision today. Now, diplomacy, will Uganda and South Sudan meeting end cross-border hostilities? How about that? As the First Lady engages Stanbic Bank to support technical education. Another report at the front pages of the New Vision to look at for today. Now, business, why MTN is selling 30% stake in Momo. Now, 4 children killed after Masaka school fire. More of that is within the New Vision. And for the parents, Senior 2 Biology, Kiswahili and Senior 6 Math is courtesy of the new curriculum in the New Vision today. Now also, let's look at the Daily Monitor. The front page of the Daily Monitor highlights US to continue paying for AIDS drugs, says the envoy. As funeral service, church thanks government for gesture on Dr. Chiinji. Then in the regional news, Fort Portal imposes garbage fees. How Cecil leaders failed to detect illegal village for years. Read about the same in the Daily Monitor. Now, a Moriat team now called for dialogue with Besigye Group. And then there is also an interesting report about what Museveni rejection of Amen Institute means for us as a country, as Masaka school fire death toll rises to 4. Then also in the Rainbow magazine, PLE, are you ready? How are parents preparing their children for the PLE, more so the P7 candidates in this regard? Then you can as well find out tenders, find over 100 deals at Nation Media Group, UNHCR, Bank of Uganda, UNMISS, URA, and the like, for all of you that are actually seeking for jobs. So that is it for the front pages of the Daily Monitor and the New Vision from our local dailies in Uganda. Later on, as we continue with the show, I'll be giving you some of the headlines making way at the front pages across the East African region, that is in Kenya and Tanzania.
Thank you so much, Jerome Paul. Right about now, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will be having a conversation on matters corruption. Are we fighting corruption or are we not? This is, of course, against the background of the charges against the former managing director of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, charges being dropped. If you remember what was in the news, he was in the news for giving 100 million shillings as a bribe. Now, the IGG dropped those charges. What about that? That's the conversation we are going to have this morning when we come back. Well, it is a beautiful morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Olive Monica Najima, and I'm hoping that you are welcoming this new... Oh, wait a minute. Not yet. Anyway, I hope that you have a beautiful morning. I am excited about the new month, so I'm even moving way past the calendar is moving. But anyway, this is Good Morning Uganda, where we give you insights into many things every single morning. So make it a plot to be with us every single morning from 6:30 to 9 a.m. I'm joined by Jerome Paul Sonko and, of course, Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono and Chantal Olive Akandinda. And as we launch into the day, there are so many things that have caught our attention this morning, and of course one of them is the sad news that happened in Masaka, where 2 pupils in Kasana Primary School died due to a school fire. Now, last week we had a conversation regarding the same about school fires when St. Teresa Primary School in Chisubi caught fire, but the good news is that there were no fatalities. The same happened in Kamuli Primary School, where a dormitory for P7 pupils caught fire and still there were no fatalities. But it wasn't the same case in Masaka, as some pupils were burnt to death, died after the fire, and of course others were referred to Chirudu here in Kampala because they had
during Women's Day on the 8th of March in Chirihura district, where we got an additional 132 million shillings to be given to the youth groups for good performance. But previously we had over 600 million shillings on top of that, and so far so good. That group is very organized actually for the women.
Hello, Mom. How did you sleep? How is Salongo? Oh, Mommy, how is Grandma? And Simba, the dog, yeah, the funny one.
Call Bona on any network in Uganda with Airtel Bona voice bundles. Dial *100*1#. Select Call Bona to choose bundles from as low as 1,000 shillings from daily, weekly, monthly, or bundles that don't expire. Call Bona on any network in Uganda with Airtel. A reason to imagine.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachiko. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Welcome back to Good Morning Uganda. Thank you so much for keeping it Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, the national broadcaster. My name is Olive Monica Najima, and I am joined by Chantal Olive Akandinda and the man himself, Joram Paul Sonko. Now, like I earlier said, we are going to delve into matters corruption. Fighting corruption in Uganda has been more than a song for so many years. Even the leader of our country has on many occasions made comments regarding the fight against corruption. Now, we have had cases where the IGG's office has actually had tremendous success in bringing those that are corrupt to book, and of course has come up with many ideas when it comes to fighting corruption. The IGG has over time suggested things like lifestyle audits for people that are in public service and even politicians to find out this money that they have, this lifestyle that they live, is it commensurate with how much money that they earn? And of course, many conversations have been said about these kind of suggestions, and of course there have been wins and fails. Now, the most recent one, we remember that over a few months ago there was a saga where David Livingstone Obiru, the executive director of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, was charged with bribery, and it was said that he had given a bribe of over 100 million shillings. Now, during a committee hearing at Parliament, Obiru at first admitted that he had given the bribe, but later on recanted and said he had said that under duress. Now, yesterday, the court, later to the Anti-Corruption Court, the Deputy Inspectorate of Government, Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, said the Ombudsman is no longer interested in pursuing the case against Ebiru. What does that mean? It means that the charges against Ebiru, the corruption charges against Ebiru were by the IGG were dropped. So he is now a free man, and if you have an issue with him, you may have to take it up again. So this brings us to our conversation today. The Ombudsman lost interest in this case, but this is not the only case of corruption by a high-ranking official that we have heard of or that we have seen in our local dailies. And of course, the big question here we are asking is, where are we, or how serious are we when it comes to fighting corruption? Because we know that it is a cancer that we are grappling with as a nation, and we've done this for so many years. But before we go deep into the issue, we would like to first of all categorize the types of corruption that we have in this country. Good morning, Jerome Paul Sonko.
Well, good morning. Good morning to our dear viewers. So when we look at some of, you did mention some of the specific categories of corruption that we have, or the examples of corruption that one can actually look at. There is bribery. Bribery is one of those, predominant cases of corruption, whereby it can actually include misuse of funds, or let's say not misuse of funds, rather theft of funds that actually meant to be used for public situations, or let's say public projects. The same applies to embezzlement, theft and fraud. So bribery, embezzlement, theft and fraud, all these are connived into, conniving to form some of these examples or categories of corruption. Then we have influence, extortion and blackmail. Extortion and blackmail may be in situations whereby someone may actually blackmail the other for, let's say, a job in a government office, or let's say situations whereby someone wants to pass out a deal, to tap in more funds, and then they tend to blackmail the other to pay them if at all they want their deal, passing through in different government offices. Then also there is favoritism, nepotism, and the like, whereby certain people tend to benefit from certain situations simply because the other person in, let's say, in pole position, or who is actually leading a given institution, is favoring them. And so the rest of the others may not benefit from a given, let's say, from a given government project and the like. Then there is also networking. Networking as a category in corruption, in a situation whereby people have to work hand in hand. We've seen situations, or we've reported cases in the country whereby you realize that it is actually a cartel, or let's say it is a group of people engaging in one corruption scandal. It may be a corruption scandal of, let's say, 200 million Ugandan shillings, and in this situation it's not only one individual but a group of people working for separate government entities, or even others in the private sector, but misusing or stealing of government funds. So when you look at some of these particular categories, you get to realize that these are some of those that someone can actually look at. But then there is also the supply versus demand corruption, and there is also public versus private corruption. So when you look at some of these particular, and especially the public versus private corruption, whereby at times the public and the private sector are in the same scandal, like I did mention with the networking issues, whereby you have someone who is in the private sector but wants something to happen really fast, and the only way to do it is either steal funds or pay someone to get a deal done. So when you look at some of these corruption cases and corruption categories, how you get to identify corruption, it will ideally take you to a situation whereby there is money included, or positions included, but most probably the money is the bigger picture.
Actually, speaking of positions, the UNBS, the former UNBS managing director, that is David Livingstone Ebiru, allegedly offered a bribe to try and extend his contract. And during a Kosase hearing, he said that he had given the money to one board member so that they don't terminate his contract, but rather extend it. Of course, later he made a U-turn and said he had made that admission out of anger, but he had not offered the bribe. Now, the ombudsman says they do not have substantive evidence. That's why they have decided to drop the charges against this gentleman. But now, away from this case, this is not the first one we've heard of or we have seen. So it begs for the question, what main challenges do investigators find when carrying out investigations, especially when it comes to corruption?
You've asked a very, very important and interesting question. I'm going to first relate it to procurement officers, especially in public sector. These people are handling procurements worth billions of shillings or hundreds of millions of shillings, but then they're being paid a little money. So now, when I take it back to the reasons as to why. You're going to realize that who is investigating these cases, for example? What facilities are there to enable them carry out these investigations properly? But also, do they have enough power and even enough protection for them to investigate and bring this information out to light without them risking their lives? That is something that we're also going to have to question. You understand? True. So imagine this person who is supposed to be investigating walks into this office, or let's say office, and this person is they're being paid maybe 1 million shillings or 600,000 or 800,000, and the person puts about 10 million on the table for them, 15 million on the table for them. What do you expect this person to do? If their integrity is shaky, definitely they are going to take that money and walk away telling you they have not found enough evidence, enough incriminating evidence, and it will all die out like that. So let's look at how have we empowered the investigators for them to be able to provide enough information, for them to be able to bring this information, whether they find or even find motive. I mean, someone who wants to investigate this issue will definitely go down to every single detail. But are these people motivated enough? Are they facilitated enough for them to be able to investigate such big cases and then bring back results that are going to give us clarity? Maybe not.
Well, also on that same point, let me also take back the viewers a little bit back to the journey of how the fight against corruption has actually been. When you look at some of the other details that are coming up, you get to realize that President Museveni did, of course, put up agencies or created institutions at both local and national levels that will help in the fight against corruption. And I think we've as well been seeing how active some have been, especially the anti-corruption unit, that is the State House anti-corruption unit, among some of the cases it has actually been handling. Then we also have agencies that were actually put in place to fight corruption or to combat corruption in the country. We have the Directorate for Ethics and Integrity, and then there's the Office of the IGG. I think this is where most of the cases have been, or this is where most of the cases stem from. This is when you see the Inspectorate of Government. Whenever a case is actually handled by the Inspectorate of Government, then you will definitely know how huge it is for such situations. Then we also have the Criminal Investigation Directorate, the CID. This does various investigations, but obviously corruption being also a national barrier or a social evil in its own way, it is something that we look at as well. That needs to be fought deliberately. Then we also have the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, that is the DPP. So that is also part of those particular agencies that were put in place, or that were actually put in place to ensure we fight against corruption and bribery cases in the country. Then the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Authority, the PPDA. All of these are agencies that are put in place to ensure corruption comes to an end. So these are all entities where you can report, by the way, where you can report corruption tenders, rather cases, whether in the public sector or even in the private space. And then the Office of the Auditor General. So the Office of the Auditor General is also another one, because with the Auditor General, this is case, I think this is where we see situations where the Auditor General comes out to audit,
Yes.
you know, the expenses of either ministers,
a government body,
you know,
yeah,
a government body.
It's a government body and also individuals.
Exactly, to see how money is being spent and all that. So these have all been efforts to ensure that, you know, we put an end to corruption. And also, not to forget, we also have an annual corruption march, whereby, you know, different government entities, we even have some private players, even Ugandans as well, the taxpayers and the president, to normally come together and we march as a country to fight against corruption. But again, one may ask, how effective has this particular match been as well?
My point, because I was about to ask you, okay, we have all these agencies that whose mandate is to fight against corruption, to investigate corruption cases, and of course to bring the culprits to book. But how effective have these been?
Well, when you talk about the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, they have tried to, you know, to do some work. Same applies to the IGG's office. I'm talking about those that have provided the information that we have seen. For example, so far the State House Anti-Corruption Unit has handled about 213 operations, and when it comes to savings and recoveries, we're talking about 16.7 billion Uganda shillings reported to have been recovered, and we are looking at about 220 arrests and charges on people that are found to be corrupt, and we have seen 24 people convicted. Okay. Now, these are statistics by the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, but I don't. Okay, let's take it as a good stride, yeah. Then when you talk about the IGG's office, at a particular point, this is as of 25th September 2023, it was reported that the IGG's office recovered 7.9 billion Uganda shillings out of the 10 trillion annual loss to corruption. So annually, we lose 10 trillion in Uganda shillings to corruption. But then by September 25th, we had recovered 7.9 billion Uganda shillings. So you can see that we are trying to, some of these agencies and bodies put in place are trying to make sure that, you know, we curb this vice. However, now for the IGG's office, recovering, in my own opinion, by the way, recovering and convicting and having all these good statistics is different from us fighting. Because if we don't have corruption, if we reduce it, we won't have to have all these many bodies that seem to be fighting against one thing. In my own opinion. So in this case now, maybe that's when we need to go back down to what are the reasons as to why corruption is prevailing in the country. If the DPP wakes up in the morning and they declare that they have lost interest in a case, and a very hot case meanwhile, what does that mean? And it's not the first case that we have seen the DPP lose interest. Same applies to the Auditor General's office. Sometimes loses interest as well. Now, what happens to these people when interest is lost? Doesn't that also promote the vice? Because you know, at a particular point, if I know how to play my cards right and I don't have evidence out there or enough incriminating evidence, they will lose interest in the case.
True.
Also, these people who are convicted, what happens to them after? What punishment is, okay, let's say you've lost interest. Where does that leave this person who had been convicted initially?
Because now in the case of Ebiru, he was fired because he was, it looks more like he was charged in the court of public opinion much more than the legal court, because he was actually not charged in court. There were charges that were, there was an investigation going on by the IGG, but the court never formally charged him. He was supposed to appear in court today. and his charges were dropped yesterday.
Yesterday.
So now what happens?
How convenient.
Does he... I know, right? So now what happens? Does he get his job back? What happens? Because his image has been tainted by all these allegations.
And I believe that is...
Are we saying that there was smoke without fire?
Well, you see, the advantage now goes back to the fact that we are a state that is actually running democratically, or what someone would actually look at as a civil state that is having different, decisions taken via court rulings and the like. So in most cases, and according to how the court operates, is at times, however much you may actually, be portrayed by the public, or be portrayed by those reporting you, or even be portrayed by the media, however much you will be portrayed by all those entities, if you're not found guilty in circumstances, or if at all the evidence that is actually brought on board does not deem you guilty, then the chances are you are going to walk away free. Or let's say you're going to walk away as innocent as you've claimed to be, given the situations that come in. And then, the funny twist though, for example, with this case of the UNBS former ED, is that there was a moment where he actually came out and accepted.
During the Kosase hearing, he admitted.
Exactly.
We also
so when he
video
accepted and admitted and all the situations. Yes. But then later on, again, there was a new plot twist to the same case, whereby, cases of I was forced to do this, I was all that,
he admitted out of anger.
Exactly. So to just... So
when you talk about the law,
we don't start.
Just a moment, Chantal. I would like to invite you to have an opinion in this conversation, and we are asking you to share your thoughts on the measures required to combat corruption effectively in Uganda. What measures do you think are required to combat corruption effectively in Uganda? I would like to hear from our friends on the X app. The hashtag is UBCGMU, and of course you on WhatsApp. The number is 0709-602592. Again, we are asking you to share your thoughts on the measures required to combat corruption effectively in Uganda. With our WhatsApp number is 0709-602592, and our friends on the X app, we would like to hear from you. The hashtag is UBCGMU. Now, Chantal, you wanted to say something.
I did.
I think she was reacting to the fact that I did mention about the law, and why our law is...
when you talk about the law, not that I'm a lawyer or something, but I know a thing or two. You can play around with the law if you want.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we saw happen. If I have an escape route, first of all, the convenience of the fact that I'm supposed to appear in court today and then my case is dismissed the day before, but also the convenience of knowing that I can stand on my two legs in front of a committee and even actually the whole nation and say, I bribed, and then come back and undo it, and it's taken.
By the way, he didn't just say, I bribed. He went into detail to talk about how he did it.
Who and
he
how
was
much.
asked, how did you talk about this on WhatsApp? Who did you give the money? He named the person. How was the money delivered? He mentioned all these things. And then later on, he recounted and said, I did this out of anger.
That is very interesting for someone who was apparently angry or did this under duress, but you have your facts really clear.
Well, facts, what you call your facts may not be facts.
May not be facts.
That's why I put them in court.
That's why I didn't mention. Yeah, that's why I didn't mention the law. And the funny twist about it, and what the viewers really need to as well understand, is that at times, however much you would actually, pin someone on the wall, and the law is a funny one. When you do not have evidence to pin this person out, then
that's my issue.
But
then the chances are this person is going to walk away free.
Do you know
and that is why, unless
people,
otherwise, even we have actually seen very few scenarios whereby if someone comes out to actually accept the charges against them, even in court, everyone, even the lawyers, will actually tell the other, please say you're innocent. however much,
because you're
however
innocent
guilty
until
you are.
Well,
proven
for a
guilty.
lawyer,
Your defense
trained,
lawyer will always tell you to plead not guilty.
Until the
because
evidence is
that lawyer
aligned. And
because that lawyer's reputation is measured on how many cases did you win.
Also, if you're a defense lawyer, you cannot tell your client to just plead guilty unless there is a deal on the table.
But
You're
the case is
guilty,
really
and
done
we are
and
going
done.
to you reduce your sentence to this, and maybe your first offender, and things like that. But anyway, I would like for us to look at the impact of corruption. How does it affect service delivery?
I will start with the Katosi saga. Let me just take back the Ugandans back to the Katosi issue. For someone who actually has deep roots from Boyikwe, I will tell you that is a lane where most people actually use. If you've used Katosi, Kokonjeru, to Naja, all those that same lane, Chisoga. You do realize that initially, as we started, how does corruption impact or affect our society, is the initial plan of that road, the layers of the road, and how it was supposed to be, how it was supposed to look like in the first place. The lanes it was supposed to have is not the actual lanes it currently has.
Right.
So that is the very first why I'm actually using the example of the Katosi saga, is because it rocked this country, especially within the central region, as much. It's also one of those predominant corruption scenarios we have. So when you look at how corruption does affect society, that is the very first thing that you look at. It affects, the quality of services provided. Because, for instance, if you look at the initial plans of the road, and then what was later on constructed, clearly shows you that it affected the planning, it affected the service. So it's like we set it for a plan B instead of the initial plan we had. So it affects service delivery and it delays service delivery. And also in situations whereby we have, let's say, medical services, if you're to look at corruption tendencies, whereby some of us do ask ourselves all these questions about why does our health center have this and this. And of course, back in the time we had a discussion here, I think a few weeks ago, where we were discussing about absenteeism in government offices. But I think also the corruption, there is a way corruption eats us up in such situations, whereby someone is not available at the work at their place of work, but they're earning money. So in simple terms, they're earning money for services they have not rendered. And in the long run, people are being cheated of their services. So you look at a whole string of corruption as well, eating us up in all sectors and affecting service delivery in one way or the other. So even when you look at some of the government hospitals deep rooted in upcountry areas, when you realize the procurement officers who are supposed to supply various services or various facilities to these hospitals, there are always cases whereby money is actually stolen through these particular accounting offices or people who are actually in charge of government accounting accounts. And in most cases, once someone takes off money, the worst part about corruption is, in case, let's say, government has rolled out, or the Ministry of Finance has rolled out 100 million, or let's say 1 billion Ugandan shillings, and someone happens to take away 100 million off the billion. From there, trust me, by the time it reaches the beneficiary, it is going to drop to around 300.
Right.
Because the very first person who takes off around 200 million is actually giving room for another person to actually take off. So as well, the more someone deducts, the more it is actually affecting the service delivery. So service delivery and impacting the kind of services or the quality we have is one of the biggest factors that corruption, greatly hinders in the country, and that is a very big hindrance to development as well.
Well, when you put it like that, look at like you said, look at that means there's a shortage in service delivery, but also there is poor quality service delivery, and this goes to things like the health sector, goes to things like the different infrastructure like roads. I mean, if you did a little bit of research, you would know the saga that has the Nalia roundabout, is it a roundabout? But that bypass and the Chisasi roundabout, you would know what I'm talking about. You would understand why, after years it had been constructed, it had to be reconstructed and apparently done the way it should have been done in the first place. Now, imagine the people that are using these roads. Imagine we are supposed to be having, say, a 4-lane or 6-lane road, and then we have a 2-lane road. You understand? Now imagine what that does for the country. But also look at the health sector in itself.
Yes.
Look at when you go to public hospitals. Do you know that some people have to bribe to get medicine in public hospitals, have to bribe to get medical attention from particular doctors in public hospitals, services they are not supposed to be paying for? You get? And that is why, because probably there is less to avail and they're fighting for it, or because some think that's an avenue for them to put more money to their pockets.
No, we have had cases of government medicines being sold in private facilities.
Yes, facilities, yes.
Because you go to a pharmacy or a clinic and you find medicine that has GOU, that is government of Uganda, and
Not
it is
for
being
sale.
sold.
Yes.
That medicine is not supposed to be for sale. And of course there have been reports regarding the same. But of course when you talk about the health sector, one of the biggest scandals we've ever had in this country regarding health and corruption was the Global Fund, where Sezicheye was sentenced to 10 years in prison after embezzling over 120 million shillings that was for HIV/AIDS funding in 2005. We've had this case. I remember that scandal was huge. It rocked the nation, and many highly standing members of society were involved.
Well, yes.
Some of them ministers.
Global Fund, yes. When you talk about Global Fund, it stretched all the way to office of the Prime Minister.
Exactly.
Even those some of whom have office now were part of the Global Fund saga.
Exactly. Some of them had actually been taken out of offices.
And then before even the term that was put in place for them to not get public office could end, they hold public offices right now.
Yeah, they do. But anyway, I have a few views coming through, but if you're just joining the conversation, would like to hear from you, and we would love for you to share your views on what measures are required to combat corruption effectively in Uganda. What measures do you believe are required to combat corruption effectively in Uganda? You can reach us through WhatsApp number 0709602592. It is on your screen right there. And for our friends on the X app, you can reach us through hashtag UBCGMU. Would love to hear from you. Now, I'd like to share some of the views that I have coming through. And the first one is from Musaigwa Museveni. Thank you so much. And he says, good morning, UBC. In a country where in a country where there is rule of law, you cannot fight corruption or misuse of government money. You will arrest and the culprit will share with the judges on grounds that it is his constitutional right to have bail. Well, when it comes to bail, it's not really sharing with the judges. The judge hears the case and then you apply for bail, and if the judge sees it fit, then you're given bail if you're not considered a flight risk. Of course, he will put in place measures like taking your passport and whatnot, so that you can now live temporarily free until the case is done. So I don't think that is really sharing. Good morning, I am Kata from Uganda. The government hates corrupt people officially, but in practice it likes corrupt people.
Interesting.
They support the government more than the so-called non-corrupt. It is like policemen like criminals since they are a source of kitu kidogo. I doubt if the officers handling the case are clean about Bantu bafe. Thank you so much for your view. And of course, this one says issues of corruption are normal, not only in Uganda, but to all countries in the world. However, To what degree is the main matter? For sure, our president has tried, but these culprits are many. And moving on, this one says, good morning, Uganda. The corruption is still far to be fought because all institutions, including court, have no supervisors. Example one, if a CID investigates a case wrongly, that is evidence that he or she has got a handshake, like they've gotten a handshake, that's why they're giving wrong information. Is there any provisions to charge this CID after not perfecting well his or her duty? Well, if you can prove beyond reasonable doubt that they were corrupt, then there is a case. Then he also says, if I go to court and be judged wrongly, sometimes we even go to Supreme Courts and win. Is there a provision for punishing the first judge who did not perfect his duty well? If the answer is no, then government is still protecting CID investigators and other law enforcement officers to eat or to involve themselves in corruption in order to perform wrong proceedings in their duties. Let government first provide punishment for any law or investigation officer who will do their duties wrongly before talking about corruption. Moving on, this one says the committee has failed Ugandans because they use sentiments during their hearing to make the public think they are doing a good job. They need to change the way they look for evidence and stick to issues rather than personal issues and humiliating the persons. This one says his name is Fred. Thank you, Fred. So I think Fred is trying to talk about the COSASE committee and their findings. And in his view, they focus on humiliating the individuals that are, being investigated or questioned rather than on the issues. Though if someone is brought to the committee and they are questioned, and they admit that they did the thing.
I also don't see the essence of, I don't even see the element of... Is that
being humiliated?
I
because the committee is there to question.
It's only the one who is actually found guilty who is humiliating themselves.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. If you have done something that is going to humiliate you, and my role is to investigate and put the facts on the table, and I've put the facts on the table, I don't think that is humiliation. That is just me showing the world, doing my part actually, playing my role as a committee to make sure that we put these things out in the public.
Okay, so let's look at the measures. What measures can government adopt to curb corruption? Because we've had cases, for instance, the Mabati scandal, that involved ministers. Some of them even spent some days in the coolers, like Amos Lugolobi and even Mary Goreti Kitutu. They spent some time in Luzira prison over fraud during the Mabati scandal. They misused the Mabati for different, for their personal usage or others. For instance, how did the Mabati scandal begin? The Mabati were supposed to be for the underprivileged in Karamoja sub-region, but then the scandal started when they were found in the hands of the relatives of the Minister for Karamoja's, in the hands of the relatives of the Minister for Karamoja. And of course, later on, Minister Amos Lugolobi was found to have roofed the shed for his animals with these iron sheets. So these two ministers and even Agnes Nandutu were taken to jail for some time, but now they're out. So what measures, and they are still ministers. So speaking of measures, what measures should the government implement to curb corruption?
Well, the Mabati saga, I would first of all give credit where it is due. Why is because how it was handled, there is a difference how other cases have been handled.
It was the first time we saw a minister or ministers for that matter being taken to jail.
Yes, and sleeping in the coolers for quite some time. So, and you could see, social media, you could see the reaction of Ugandans even away from social media, those who follow news on television, radio and all that. Everybody had their say, but there is a way Ugandans appreciated the efforts that were put in place. And then also the mere fact that those who were in, it was a serious saga whereby a number of ministers were in it.
Minister, Speaker of Parliament.
Then this is where we saw people actually returning iron sheets, others returning cash. And all that was actually happening in a situation whereby Ugandans started appreciating that if we actively, take on such cases with our heads held high, without even fear or without any sort of favoritism, we are going to put an end to these situations, or people are going to be held accountable.
And I like that even the president had a say when it came to the Mabati scandal, where he even said, if you took the iron sheets and did what was supposed to be used for them, for instance, you give them to schools, all you have to do is pay back. But if you use for personal use, you go to jail. That's how Minister Lugolobi found himself in jail.
That is away from that, like on a lighter note, that is below the belt. How do you tell me a minister, member of parliament, cannot afford iron sheets for their houses, for their animal house? That's very embarrassing for us.
He could afford, because he later removed them from the shed and said, these are evil iron sheets, I can afford them.
So, but also, again, I think when it comes to fighting or putting an end to corruption, I think it's now going back to the kind of people we put, in power. There was an argument that was actually being followed back in the time, whereby some people were arguing that the time when Kenya, after the Kenyan elections last year, just quickly, last year, where the ministers or the cabinet were coming in live on television, to declare their wealth and assets. I think that is something we really need to take seriously.
No, the IJG here has suggested the lifestyle audit.
But in
however,
most cases,
even the president himself was against the lifestyle audit.
He told her to go slow on it.
Because they're helping us by investing in the country. So
no, in most cases, for the Kenyans, it was actually not only lifestyle, but majorly on the wealth, whereby before someone actually goes into power, you need to see what is their, what do they have? Because there are actually people who get into parliament without anything, and then they are put into positions where they're supposed to make decisions to impact society, or they're actually the accounting
in less than
officers.
5 years, they're swimming in money.
Exactly. So when you put out such situations, you get to realize that at times, you're either putting in someone who's not hungry as such. So the chances are, in case, the argument was, if you put in someone who is already up there, they will be,
what has taken them is service delivery, not to work and get
but are you now leaving out the people who could have good policies and ideas for the country, but because they're poor?
Sadly, what we have in society is that even those we look at and say they're well off and we've put them in power, they are used to these things, they still engage. So
because the more you get, the more you want.
The more you want.
Well, Chantal, parting shots.
My parting shots would be let's get back down to individuals and tell ourselves that we are doing. If you're getting into an office, a public office, you're doing it to serve Uganda, not to serve yourself. Mind you, even your family is a household of Ugandans. So please, let's do the service delivery for the people, not for ourselves.
Well, thank you so much. And Lance Ivan from the X app says they should sell their assets and take them to Luzira Maximum Prison. That is his suggestion on what measures should be put in place to curb corruption. Thank you so much for your views. This is Good Morning Uganda. The conversation continues online. We'll be right back.
Of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
There's also another program, which is the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, WEP, where we have dispersed the funds to the women groups, and of which recovery for the WEP program is around 52%. And of recent, the district was given more funds. The president actually was the one who officiated it during Women's Day on the 8th of March in Chirihura district, where we got an additional 132 million shillings to be given to the youth groups for good performance. But previously we had over 600 million shillings on top of that, and so far so good. That group is very organized actually for the women.
Hello, Mom. How did you sleep? How is Salongo? Oh, Mommy, how is Grandma? And Simba, the dog, yeah, the funny one.
Call Bona on any network in Uganda with Airtel Bona voice bundles. Dial star 100 star 1 hash. Select Call Bona to choose bundles from as low as 1,000 shillings from daily, weekly, monthly, or bundles that don't expire. Call Bona on any network in Uganda with Airtel. A reason to imagine.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda wange. Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Well, good morning again. I'm Jerome Paul Songo. It is now time for the GMU Business Update of the day. 31st of October is the same date, or what you could say the last day of the month. It's usually the time when the Uganda Bureau of Statistics as well also comes up with information about how the economy has been faring in regards to inflation, in regards to price fluctuations, in regards to, the price index and all that. That is information that I'll definitely be giving you tomorrow. But of course, it is something that I look forward to as well as a Ugandan to see how the economy has been, faring. More so, which goods have actually, had their prices decrease, or which services have affected the rise in inflation or the decrease of the same. Lots of that do come to the situation. So we're only left with 2 months to end the year 2023. So definitely, if you did have your New Year resolutions, I don't know how far you've actually gone, but for the business community, it's all about keeping your heads high and also being more resilient, because you never know. Before the year ends, you may hit a goal, or you may actually hit a big deal that will see you blossom higher and bigger in 2024. But well, speaking of that, let's start off with the mineral wealth in the country, as the Minister of State for Energy and Mineral Development, Peter Locaris, wants geological experts in the country to carry out specialized exploration on the quantity as well as the quality of the minerals to attract necessary investments. Now, the minister was opening a 2-day mineral wealth conference in Kampala. The stakeholders in the mineral wealth want a specialized exploration on mineral deposits available in the country that warrants industrial level investments. Now, also, this was during the 12th Annual Mineral Wealth Conference by the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum that was held at the Kampala Serena Hotel. It's a two-day event, obviously, and the minister did reveal that exploration is needed to ascertain the quantity and the quality of available minerals. He as well appealed to the private sector for more investment in value addition, because if we want to increase our exports, especially in that particular sector, then we have to make sure that value addition is something we really need to look at, especially when it comes to ensuring that at least, or ideally, the minerals sector is one thing that we need to be lifting as a country. But well, besides that, of course, various stakeholders within the mineral sector in the country are taking part in this two-day event, and this is the same kind of situation whereby if you are out there and you want to understand how the market works, the Palace Arena Hotel is the place to be. Now let's talk social media and turn our eyes to the X app. According to the latest findings as well, of course, in the year since taking over Twitter, now rebranded as the X app, Elon Musk has gutted content moderation and restored accounts of previously banned extremists and allowed users to purchase account verification. This in turn has actually helped them profit from viral but often inaccurate posts. Of course, we've seen some of the content creators, social media influencers earning of the ads revenue on Twitter as well. So in such situations, what has actually happened is that we've seen various people, creating various posts now that they know they can easily earn from the kind of content they create. And this has actually also led to the rise of false information, simply because people want to meet different targets to make sure that they earn good money or good dollars at the end of the month. Now, Elon Musk has instead promoted community notes, in which, of course, we've been able to see community notes whereby people can easily come out and give clarity on information that has been shared. Now, in which, when you look at the community notes that have actually been in place, is to ensure that ex-users police the platform as a tool to combat misinformation. So he has actually also revealed that corrections, that once a post has a correction, then it will no longer be eligible for payment, as the social network is coming under mounting criticism for misinformation. So once you post, let's say, information, or once you come out to give false information and the community notes police that information or come out to give further clarity of what you're actually giving out, then the chances are that particular post of yours will not be eligible for payment. So to all the social media influencers out there, especially in the country, be mindful of the kind of information you're sharing, be factual, and make sure that at least the information you're sharing is worth it. At times, however much the excitement gets you, you need to as well be cautioned about the information you share, because the rise of misinformation has actually gone up there with the fact that we've seen quite a number of social media uptake in the country also rising. So that means most of the people who take social media very importantly tend to as well receive wrong information, or those who are actually in charge of giving out information on social media tend to wrongfully give out information. This is something that Elon Musk looks forward to putting an end to, with the community notes first of all, and also making sure that those who are giving out false information will not have their posts eligible for payment. Now, besides that, let's also have something to do with the forex market. Now, the forex market has closed of business 30th October 2023. The US dollar was buying at 3,767.75 while selling at 3,777.75 shillings. And then the US dollar did close by buying at 3,768.00 while selling at 3,778.00. The Great Britain pound was buying at 4,564.55 shillings while selling at 4,576.66 shillings. The euro was buying at 3,979.38 shillings while selling at 3,989 0.94 shillings. Now, let's look at the Kenyan shilling here. It was buying at 25.03 shillings while selling at 25.10 shillings. The Tanzanian shillings, on the other hand, was buying at 1.50 while selling at 1.50 shillings. South African rand was buying at 200.11 shillings while selling at 200.64 Ugandan shillings. And of course, this is something that comes up in regards to the forex market. All right, away from the press, rather away from the business outlet this morning. Now let's turn our focus on looking at what is making headlines at the front pages of the dailies. First from Uganda, and then we look at what is making headlines in Kenya and in Tanzania. From the Ugandan perspective, the New Vision highlights national IDs, a red flag on 2026 polls. Mass enrollment of 17 million Ugandans hangs in balance is a bigger report by the New Vision today. First Lady engages Stanbic Bank to support technical education as 4 children killed after Masaka school fire. There's a pictorial of the same at the front page of the New Vision this morning. Read about it. Now in business, why MTN is selling 30% stake in the MTN mobile money. Read about the same in the New Vision. Now society, stay-at-home mothers want monthly salary. Big report in the New Vision today. And in her vision, how I am coping up with loss of child. Of course, there is a parent out there who lost their child and sharing her story in today. And of course, if you're facing the same situation currently, you can read about it and see how you can go about the same. Now in diplomacy, will Uganda-South Sudan meeting end cross-border hostilities? The bigger question by the New Vision at their front page today morning. The Daily Monitor highlights US to continue paying for AIDS drugs, according to the US envoy. Now, Masaka school fire death toll rises to 4, as in the Rainbow magazine, PLE, are you ready? PLE is just days away. How ready are the parents in there? Now, Amuriat team now calls for dialogue with Besigye Group. Then what Museveni rejection of Amen Institute means for us. Read about the same. And also in the regional news, Fort Portal imposes garbage fees. House leaders fail to detect illegal village 4 years. That and more is what you can read in the Daily Monitor. Let's cross the borders to Kenya now. As we cross the borders to Kenya, let's look at Kenya's top counties highlighted in the Daily Nation. Ruto rules out fees increase as KCPE and KPSEA exams start. And then also King Charles III and Queen Camilla start 4-day Kenya trip. Then technology, 5 local startups make the cut for Africa Tech Contest. Azimio protests, police raid on Arati's office. More of that is in the Daily Nation. And of course the royal visit, you can read about it as King Charles is coming to Kenya. Lastly, the Citizen in Tanzania, how leading banks posted 33% jump in profits. Then 7 charged with armed robbery kidnapping as the business target. Board with sites on record coffee production as government mulls loans for trainee pilots. Uniform teacher standards in the pipeline. Read about the same in the Citizen this very morning as well. Well, also that is it for the press review and the GMU business update this very morning. It's now time for the traffic updates with Monica.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. Now, before I get into the traffic updates, Jerome Paul, there was a story there where housewives want to be paid an income, a salary.
You know, that's a very big conversation.
I actually like
it. Salary for that.
Because women put in so many hours of labor that is not compensated. So if stay-at-home wives want a salary, I'm all for it. Maybe I'll quit my job.
It will also depend on the conditions under which she became a stay-home wife.
No. That is background noise. But anyway, we'll have a conversation on that. Right about now, if you're coming from the areas of Nasana and of course Namungona, we are going to take it up from there. And we start with the roundabout, the northern bypass roundabout at Namungona. Now, if you're coming from Nasana, it looks like the road has clear traffic this morning coming through from Nasana area. areas joining the Northern Bypass roundabout, as you can see there. Now, people coming in from the side of Busega still joining this roundabout. There isn't much to worry about, at least not at this point. Now, if you are heading to the areas of Namungona, I see orange zones that are building up, indicating that traffic is starting to build up on this section of the road as you continue to Namungona and of course head to areas of Kasubi and later on Nankulabye. As you can see, when you reach that intersection at Kasubi roundabout, now traffic has built up, especially around Ruby's service station. That is at that corner as you go to Masiro, and of course as you slope down to Sir Apollo Kagwa Road. So I don't know where you're headed, but there is a bit of traffic there, though it isn't so much. Now, looking at roads like Kawala Road, there is traffic that is coming through. Actually, I see deep road zones on Kawala Road as it joins that intersection at Kasubi. But of course, taking a look at Chimera Road, still within Kasubi, as it goes down to connect to Sir Apollo Kagwa Road. At the start, if you're coming from Chimera Road, you're going to encounter traffic jam right there as you join the Kasubi roundabout. But if you're going to the sides of Sir Apollo Kagwa Road using Chimera Road, then there is a smooth flow of traffic on that section. Now, continuing with Hoima Road, let's look at the road and how it goes to areas of Nankulabye. At the start from Kasubi roundabout, there is a smooth flow of traffic, but there is that sharp corner as you're leaving the Kasubi roundabout heading to Nankulabye that now has a traffic jam that has built up, and it goes on and on until you reach Nankulabye, the intersection that has the traffic lights right around the market area. And if you're going to areas of Balintuma Road, yes, you're in luck. There is smooth flow of traffic, so you could decide to use this route because Balintuma Road looks quite okay this morning. Now, if you are continuing to Makere Hill Road, now there you're going to encounter a little bit of traffic jam, especially as you join that intersection that joins Sir Apollo Kagwa Road and that road that comes from Nankulabye, and of course as you head to the areas of Wandege. Now, after the traffic lights around Full Gospel Church, you are going to encounter traffic jam around that section. It takes you all through the Makerere University main gate, but also if you're coming from Gaddafi Road, there is traffic over there, so you may be delayed for a bit as you get through that section of town. Now, of course, around Makerere University main gate, like I said, there is huge traffic over there, and as you continue to the areas of Wandege through Makerere Hill Road, then traffic becomes smooth. Now, looking at Wandege town itself, actually today, coming from Bombo Road, there is smooth flow of traffic over there. So if that's the area you're headed to, you should be able to move without so much of an encumbrance. But if you are heading to the areas of Kampala Road, you're going to find a traffic jam over there. And of course, if you're going to the areas of Uganda Road, this road that connects you from Wandegea to Uganda Road is fully red, which means you're going to encounter traffic jam over there. But if you're going to head to areas of Lumumba Avenue, here I only see green zones, meaning that there is smooth flow of traffic in this area of town. And if you're continuing to Haj Kasule Mukasa Road, then you're going to find that the traffic jam, a little bit of it will be Haj Musa Kasule Road. You're going to find traffic jam just around that Tuko roundabout. And of course, if you're coming in from Binaisa Road, There is intense traffic in this section of town. Now let's look at other areas like Dwaliro Road. As I can see this morning, there is intense traffic at Dwaliro Road, and of course there is intense traffic that is coming through from Kubili roundabout. So if those are the roads you're using, yeah, please be advised that you may be delayed for a bit on in this section. Now I see some bit of traffic jam that is coming through from Faro Road joining Dwaliro Road, which Dwaliro Road now takes you to Lower Mulago Hill Road. So if these are the sections of town you're going to, some of them have intense traffic this morning, others do not have. For instance, Lower Mulago Hill Road actually has smooth flow of traffic, and as it joins to Singiri Road, you will still find that there is smooth flow of traffic over there. So as you plan your routes this morning, I hope that you make good decisions regarding the routes that you are going to use. Well, that's about it for traffic updates. My name is Olive Monica Najima. Do keep it UBC GMU.
Of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Mukoke Fish Farmers Association tuli balunzi ba byananda ebyebika ebisatu. Omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni catfish twete male. Group eno twatandika twali abantu basatu nga tulingirira obwetaavu obwebyenanda obwivwa eno okubona nti tufuna okasente akava mu maadi agali gatambula butambule nga gatubita ku wanu ng'ekirabo. Twatandika ni fish pond ndala mu mwaka gw'e2018. Twebaza fisheries officer ni district ya Bugiri babanga batulagirira kusani fish farm ebuyikwe ni side day ndeyo twabanga tusobola okufuna kwetusako obugege obwasooka era mu mwaka ogwali 2022 awo basobola okubanga batuwaayo ebyenanda emitwalo dali ena okuva mu operation werese creation era okuba yongereza ku emere yatuweebwa okuva Ugachik Poultry Breeders. Twasobola okubanga tusoloza akasente akawerera obukayire nga 42. Twasobola okubanga tubuinvestinga oba okubona nti twongerezaako ku bimu ku bintu bye tukola gano. Bebaza government yaife okubanga buli saawa efaayo okubanga efeeri y'abana Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala, we have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
So this is my general perception. One, that this project entered in strategic areas of government, but that it has created a base for the now last mile strategy, which is the parish development model. And therefore this base that it has left will help us actually, and I'm sure we'll get better results in a Chole area and Ajumani when we are implementing the parish development model.
This week on UBC.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. I'm Robert Chirabonyonyiton, in case you have just joined. We are here from 6:30 every weekday, and I can assure you there is so much that we have in stock for you, right from some light moments in the introductory bit of this show, and then we have the newsreel, we have press review. It's a full-packed show, full of information that you need to know, and moreover, trusted information in this day and time when there is so much that happens on social media that can mislead you. So if you want credible information, if you want to verify something you're seeing on social media as the day starts, Good Morning Uganda is the only show in the land that you have. This morning, I'm going to be discussing something very interesting, yet very sensitive as well. I was taught that two things you never play with. That is someone's culture and someone's religion. Now, today we are going to have an insight into the affairs in Church of Uganda. So much is happening. One would say, is it a repeat of history? Because there was a time we saw a bishop praying or leading prayers during a meantime. Those that have read the history of Church of Uganda. And he was guarded. Then later, after that's when we saw this split, the bishop, then the archbishop and all that. But that's not the topic for today. Today, we want to understand what exactly is happening. Those that remember the Wero bishop election, where we saw Christians go to courts of law. And the Bible says, give what belongs to Caesar, and what belongs to God. The scripture says, how do you bring matters to the urn? However, court pronounced itself and said, no, if you're a Christian, you've succumbed to that faith, you've taken in whatever the faith directs, and court cannot choose a bishop. This is totally affairs of Church of Uganda. So dismissed the case on those grounds. Joining me to discuss this, not forgetting the affairs also at Namirembe, where we await for a new bishop. We've had a postponement, and also there are surrounding circumstances there, not very, very clear. So I'm delighted to have the spokesperson or communications officer of Church of Uganda, Sadiq Adams. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Robert, for inviting me. It's a joy to be here on UBC TV. To our viewers, good morning and praise the Lord.
Amen.
Greetings from the Church of Uganda. And we thank you for being our partners in ministry. UBC have been with us to reach out to the world, and also for giving us an opportunity to give people clear information on what we are doing, our ministry, and where we are heading to. It's a joy, and we want to thank you and the management of UBC.
Oh, I know it's a pleasure when you serve the Lord, and of course, as it is, being in the presence of God as well. Now here, I'm very honored because there is so much that I believe not only members of the Church of Uganda, but also many concerned people, Sadiq, they're wondering, in this day and age, how do we see election of a bishop becoming an issue to the extent of Christians going to court? How do we see a bishop who has served his tenure comes to an end and there are challenges in having a replacement? What exactly is happening within Church of Uganda?
Well, thank you so much, Robert. You know, Church of Uganda has clear structures. First of all, we have the Provincial Assembly, which is the topmost decision-making organ body for the Church of Uganda. This Provincial Assembly brings together representation from all dioceses. They come, sit, formulate laws. Our laws are contained in canons and the Constitution. These documents, these laws, must be followed to the letter. Now, they have established procedures. We believe in policy, protocol, and procedure. Right from the beginning of the election process of the next bishop, there are processes. Right from the time of the synod sitting, election of the nominations committee, and that process up to when they submit names to the House of Bishops. The two names for the House of Bishops to select one person to be the next bishop. Now, Church of Uganda believes in giving a fair hearing to our Christians. We don't believe in dictatorial processes. Even in our canons, they set clear that when there are challenges in the nomination process, when there are complaints, those complaints must be heard. We don't believe in saying that someone has spoken, this is final. We give a listening ear, and that we have done for so many years. Church of Uganda is credited for that. There is not a time when we have not given people fair hearing. What is happening has happened before. The nullification of elections in some places has happened before. There is nothing that is happening for the very first time. What we believe in is a fair hearing and fair judgment. We believe the voice of every Christian matters. That is our belief. And that is what you are hearing. It's not that some people misinterpret the hearing process. Because at the moment, for example, like we are asking about Namirembe, the nominations committee sat, submitted names, which I may not disclose. And because there were complaints from some members of the public, the House of Bishops, they deemed it fit that they should defer this election to give room for the nomination committee and the House of Bishops Select Committee, the ad hoc committee which they formed, to interact and harmonize and investigate, find out how was the process. And they are working on a report which they are going to submit to the House of Bishops when they sit in this coming month of November, and Namirembe Diocese will have a bishop. So we believe in processes, and processes is not a must that they must run smoothly. Sometimes you have hinges along the way. But as the Church of Jesus Christ, we believe in fair hearing, in unity and reconciliation. And that's what we are trying to do.
Now, what does this mean to the sanctity of church and Church of Uganda as an institution, this sacred place? What does it mean when we see such happening? Because one would believe it's a smooth process. One would believe I'm a born-again Christian, but well versed with Church of Uganda because I have deep roots in there. one would believe there's the Holy Spirit intervention, that a bishop is not elected in a manner like we're electing a member of parliament. These are men of God who gather, they pray, there is divine intervention, and the Holy Spirit leadeth them and the Holy Spirit anoints someone. Now, when we see a spiritual process, because we believe God calls a bishop, God anoints that bishop, and we should see this divine intervention. When we see the Holy Spirit or the anointing flow, and it is questioned that man, where the anointing has come, has a relationship with somebody else. Have we fallen far from God's grace, that he has departed from us, and now it is man doing things under the disguise of heavenly anointing and guidance?
Well, the Lord has been with us and is still with us, and that's why we are here. Now, the whole process, like you said, it is a spiritual process. And because of prayers, that's why we have maintained the sanctity of the church. From the beginning, every process is marked with prayer. It's prayer all the way. And that's why when it comes to the House of Bishops, the prayers become more serious. Because, humanly speaking, mistakes can be made during the election process, the nomination process. From the beginning, there can be some mistakes which can be made humanly. Let me complete.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the House of Bishops, like you said, there is a lot of prayer over those two names. But also, because the House of Bishops, the bishops are the custodians of these laws, the canons and the constitution. With the guidance of the chancellor, they cannot allow room for any unfortunate happening. That's why sometimes they take decisions, they make decisions which are hard to bear. Because from the beginning, you might say that the nominations committee, they selected Robert and Ben to be considered for election for the office of a bishop. But at that final stage, the House of Bishops, after serious prayers and clear criticism of the two names versus what is written in the Constitution and the canons of the Church of Uganda, sometimes they decide and nullify the election. That's what has happened in the previous cases. Because you don't want to elect a person, and after those processes of consecration and enthronement, the person has already been declared a bishop, and then something happens like we are talking that, how could they elect Robert, whom I know, who has this background, who has, his discipline has not been clear, his integrity is questioned. So those are the things we try to avoid. We want as much as we can to elect someone who is qualified and suitable and called for service. And that is done in line with the canons and the Constitution. Even though Robert, you might be a good person, well-educated, but we keep looking at the canons. What do the canons say? Every word matters, because every article, every word there was proposed by the provincial assembly, which is the topmost decision-making organ of Uganda, which you can call like parliament in the secular world. Those are the ones that come up with those laws. So when we are electing, we look at the canons to the letter. We follow them. Even if there is any mistake that has happened, humanly speaking, mistakes happen. Even nominations committees can make mistakes. Even the bishops, sometimes they can make mistakes. But we try as much as we can to limit the possibility of a mistake. We want to come up with a bishop who has the moral integrity, who is well qualified, who is called for that ministry at that particular time, but also in line with our provincial constitution and our canons.
Well, we are still having an insight into the affairs at the Church of Uganda, and I have the communications officer, Church of Uganda. Now, so much has happened in the recent past. Sadiq, currently for the faithful in Luweero, what is the current situation? Recently I saw, was it a bishop who went to preach, and the Christians decided to protest and not enter church, but move out of church, sit on the veranda, hold placards, and I was like, Jesus, how far have we fallen? Have mercy, Lord.
Of course, those are isolated incidences. They are highly regrettable. Because what we believe in is that people are called to ministry, to service. The House of Bishops elected the Reverend Canon Godfrey Kasana when they were in Muhabura Diocese, that is in Kisoro. But after some time, after a number of petitions, like I had told you before, and when they looked at every accusation deeply, they nullified the election. And the reasons why they nullified were communicated by the provincial secretary, the Reverend Canon Captain William Ongeng, communicated to the general public about the unfortunate incident that had happened of the nullification. Now, when there is a vacancy in a diocese, let's say the bishop has retired, maybe the bishop, unfortunately, has died, or maybe the bishop has resigned, the archbishop takes over that diocese, according to the canons. Now, what happened in Luweero, the archbishop took over the diocese because Bishop Edad Nsubuga was retiring. The archbishop, because of his busy schedules, the canons and the constitution give him authority to choose a caretaker. Any person, any bishop, he deems fit to caretake for him that diocese at that particular time. Now, he appointed Bishop James William Sebagara, the retired bishop of Mukono Diocese, to caretake Luweero Diocese for that given period of time. He had given him some period of time, but the nominations committee of the diocese requested him to give them some ample time for them to review the process again. And he gave them up to March. So Bishop James William Sebagara is supposed to caretake Luweero Diocese up to March 2024. And from the recent engagements, Bishop James William Sebagara has clearly said that ministry is going on very well. Even the recent meeting of the House of Bishops, he said ministry is going on very well. Of course, there are isolated incidences.
Because I think that was his first day of arrival.
No, he had spent there some time.
When I was shocked, I was home and I saw Christians protesting.
I think, you know, the Church of Uganda is a welcoming church. You don't need an ID to go to Namirembe Cathedral, do you?
No,
when you go there on Sunday?
It's a public place.
Now, someone who is agitated with the process can mobilize thugs. They wear clothes and they go to a service where the bishop is to disrupt the service. But the real Christians of Luweero, they know ministry is continuing. Because first of all, Bishop James William Sebagala is there for a very short period of time. Count it up to March. How many months are those? Those are very few. He's there to perform the ministry that Bishop has assigned him to do. He's confirming Christians. That is happening. I think you know it. He's baptizing Christians. He's wedding Christians. He's conducting burials. He's preaching the gospel with enthusiasm. And that one, it is clear. Even if you talk to him today, he will tell you that ministry is going on well. Definitely, you can't assume that it will be a safe landing for him. Because there are people who are still not happy with what happened, the decision made by the House of Bishops. But I believe that if you are a real Christian, you don't look at the person of James William Sebagala. You look at the bishop. You look at James William Sebagala as the bishop. You don't look at him as a man from Mukono or somewhere. You look at him as a bishop coming to give you a service. It is not a must that Robert must be my bishop. No. God is the one who calls. He calls some to be apostles. He calls. You are called for a given cause at a particular time. At this moment of time, it is Bishop James William Sebagala caretaking. But we believe that by March, they will have got a bishop. It will not take long.
Let me ask something. I'm not well versed with the canon law, but at least I have. Now, when the process of nomination, they come two names. If one is not befitting, why then doesn't the other automatically get the nomination and you continue?
You know, we believe sometimes humanism comes in. And of course, sometimes secularism can also come, even in the nomination process. So why we take that route of saying the two names must all be suitable and qualified is because we want to give the House of Bishops an opportunity for them to choose without fear of favor.
So if one shows short of glory, then the other also.
Yes. You know, like I told you, I think people sometimes maybe they don't get it clear about these laws that we follow. And that's why I keep talking about canons and the Constitution. You know, if, for example, Parliament enacts a law, they come up with a bill, it becomes an act, becomes a law. That is Parliament for the government of Uganda. For us, the other side, it is the Provincial Assembly. The Provincial Assembly said there must be two names who are of equal standard. They should be of equal standard. Meaning that even if they presented Robert and Reuben, this is Robert, this is Reuben. Even if you crossed your eye and you said, let me take this, will be the best candidate. And that's what we try to do. If they bring two names and we find one is not suitably qualified for that position, you take the names back. That is according to our... It's not a policy of Archbishop Kazimba. It's not a policy of the bishops. It is the law for the church. The laws governing the church, that's what they say. And those laws, we are just custodians. The bishops cannot say, that you know, now we are time bad. They have just sent us two names. One is qualified. The other ones, I think, by the next time of election, he would have become qualified. Let's go with this one. No. The law does not allow. And we are custodians of the law. We don't want to be violators.
Well, let me just remind my viewer that you can be part of the topic of discussion this morning, and that is the number on your screen. Kindly send me a text or a WhatsApp message, and I'll be reading it out for Sadiq to respond. Now we've finished issues of Ruwero. My only worry is, how do we bridge the gap the divisions that have ensued, right from the time when we had, I think it was a lay leader come before. There's been so much drama, so much chaos, so much confusion. I had never seen a police in premises of a cathedral, you know, coming to query in holy ground, if I may use that word. So much as this is happening, as they're waiting for much, Sadiq, let's accept the Christians are now divided.
Well, Robert, I think the most unfortunate bit is maybe also the path that the media has decided to follow. Because the most unfortunate bit is that the media has not showcased what we are doing besides this what you call chaos in the courts, which I have not seen. I have not seen any chaos. I have not seen maybe those incidences you are talking about, which were unfortunate. I think you are talking about Ruwero. Police comes to keep law and order. That is their work. When police feels there is likely to be any form of chaos, they deploy. And we have no mandate whatsoever to chase away the police. They suspect that there might be confusion or chaos any time at this particular place, irrespective of where they will deploy. Now, I don't want to say that the church is in a crisis. We are not in any form of crisis. We are just in a process of reconciliation with those who feel they are not comfortable, they are not pleased with what happened. For example, in Ruwero, that process can never be smooth. You know it very well. Reconciliation takes time. It's a process. It's a healing process. Recently, we had the clergy conversion in Ruwero Diocese, the provincial clergy conversion in Ruwero for all clergy in Church of Uganda. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, we had another one organized by the Directorate of Missions and Outreach. They had all clergy within Ruwero Diocese, and they took them in a period of retreat, prayers, serious prayers. We have done the same with our heads of laity. We are trying to build reconciliation. It's unfortunate that those developments, sometimes they fail to get space in the media, but that is happening. There is no divisionism in the church whatsoever. Like you said, we have a number of Christians, some are Anglicans, some are Pentecostals, some are other faith, but they are always welcome. We don't have IDs we give to our Anglicans. We don't know those who assume to be uncomfortable to which religion they belong. The other day I saw an SDA wrote an article in the New Vision, you know, an opinion article, saying, asking about Ruwero Diocese, saying the bishops had done something dramatic and whatsoever. So for us, we are a welcoming church. We cannot ask Robert for you to comment about Church of Uganda. Are you an Anglican or you are a Catholic? We cannot ask those questions. For us, we know we are called for ministry. When you bring a query, we respond to you in a Christian manner. For us, what we are trying to do as the Church of Uganda is to reach out to our Christians using our structures to bring harmony, to bring unity. And that is exactly what the Honorable Principal Judge advised. Even his ruling,
it was a very smart ruling.
It was a very smart ruling.
And very clear.
If the church has canons, has the constitution, these books are not hidden from the public. Even if you went to the Uganda bookshop, they are there. Even if you went to the provincial secretariat,
actually, this ruling set up
they are there. So,
saying that religious issues,
yes,
if you succumb to that faith,
absolutely,
therefore you succumb to the constitution.
And the court was clear. The Honorable Principal Judge was very clear that we should root for reconciliation and unity. That is what Archbishop Kazimba has been saying from the beginning.
Now, before I go to the messages that are coming in, a clear update of Luwero you've rightly explained, and I know that Christians in Luwero now, you know, come March, God willing, he will call a bishop for you. He will anoint someone for you. Just pray for a smooth process. Now, Namirembe.
Well,
sometimes we've heard that someone's tenure expired. They don't want to leave office.
Yes.
We've heard that some may have so much under the carpet. They want to influence that the new bishop who comes can be able to cover them up. Well, we've heard that some may be property, that there's so much to hide, and being a religious institution, that there is so much covering up.
Well, there is no covering up in Namirembe Diocese. I think sometimes we tend to blow things out of proportion, but there is no problem absolutely with Namirembe Diocese. Bishop Wilberforce Chityo Walira is still the bishop. He's still there up to December. We still have time. What happened was the nominations committee did their work, but when they submitted their report to the House of Bishops, after clear scrutiny, they formed an ad hoc committee to interact further, you know, to work collaboratively with the nominations committee. And we are not yet out of time because we still have November. We have, you know,
and
December is coming.
I've heard him on many occasions saying, I'm ready to retire.
Absolutely. Bishop Wilberforce Chityo Walira has served diligently and is not under pressure to retire. He has prepared.
Can an outgoing bishop in any way, speaking humanly now?
Yes.
We thank the Holy Spirit who has been with us since the beginning of the show. Now, speaking humanly, can an outgoing bishop in any way influence the election of the next bishop?
Well, I think...
don't think.
No. The fact is a bishop has limited possibilities of influencing. Now, let me tell you, maybe to inform you about the formation of the nominations committee. On the nominations committee, there are 15 members, and the bishop is not among. The chairperson is the diocesan chancellor, who is the legal advisor of the nominations committee. The nominations committee comes from the diocesan synod. The synod is like the parliament at the diocesan level. They choose 15 members to form the nominations committee. According to our canons, the committee should be independent. The real meaning of independent. They should be void of any influence. There should be no level of influence. That's why when you read the canons, you'll find one of the reasons why an election can be nullified is when they learn that there was influence peddling. If a bishop, for example, has an influence in the nomination process, it is cancelled.
Now, who do they pick from? A pool?
The 15?
Yeah, this nomination committee. What are the criteria do you from which they can choose the two candidates?
Now, when the election, the nominations committee is formed, the 15 people led by the chancellor of the diocese, they sit, and different nomination committees have different procedures. There are some nomination committees which do headhunting. They look at the clergy within the diocese, outside the diocese, and they identify them, and they call on them to give them their CV. Yeah? And they do background checks on them. That is one. Number two, there are other nomination committees which call for expression of interest. They say, they give an opportunity to all clergy to express their interest. If you know you're above 45 years, if you know you have a bachelor's degree, in theology or diploma. If you have, because it is supposed to be a bachelor's degree in theology or divinity, or a bachelor's degree in any field of academia, and a diploma or a degree in theology, a diploma or degree in theology or divinity. Now, you must be a person of integrity. You must be not questioned. Your integrity must not be put to question. You must have served 10 years in active ordained ministry. And the nominations committees, they start to look at those candidates who have expressed their interest.
So must you be under a certain jurisdiction? Say if you are looking for a Bishop of Ruwero, must you be within or any other part of the country I can apply?
According to our current diocesan constitutions, there is room for, as long as you are a clergy within the Church of Uganda, you can express your, I don't want to call it applying, it is to express interest. But that is for some nomination committees. Expression of interest is by some nomination committees. Others, like I said, they choose to do head hunting privately. They reach out to you, they say, give us your CV. Now, someone from Mukono can be a bishop in Mitiana, can be a bishop in Chinchizi. Someone in Chinchizi can be a bishop in Kitgum. It's just that some people, because of the language, that's why some of them do not go beyond their regions. But the process is always that thorough and clear, that they give room to clergy in Church of Uganda to express.
Now, let me just have a brief. Most of these messages are extremely long. I don't know why, but I'll try. Thanks for the show. Well, I don't have your name. Now, morning Isaiah from Bale. Thank you for the show. Well, thank you. There is so much. Why have you failed to tame that disgruntled bishop in Kumi Diocese who is still clinging on Church of Uganda properties? There is that one for you. Good morning, this is Trevor from Mukono. The Ugandan church is just becoming more political than God-led, thinking that men should have the final say, yet it should be God. Let's go with those two.
Well, I want to begin with the one of Kumi. The one of Kumi is really very unfortunate, and it's not something that we really should have in the near future for the future of the Anglican Church. Because we believe our clergy, they are always teaching us. I'm still a member of the House of Laity. The clergy teach us that leadership comes from God. For you to be a bishop, you are called by God at that particular time. The Reverend Okunya Ode Charles was elected, but then they found out that there was falsification of age, because you must be 45, and according to the investigations carried out, he was not yet at that age. So they nullified the election. But you see, I think what he forgot was that there are always more and better opportunities in ministry than being a bishop. So we reached out to him. We did all the necessary counseling we could. But I think in his own wisdom, he felt he needs to join another faith. And the most unfortunate bit is that he decided to use a manner which is not godly. He thought he was going to use the existing Church of Uganda property for his ministry, which was very, very unfortunate. Because they even went to court. The church defeated him. He's supposed to pay us a huge cost, by the way. It's because we are, sometimes we are lenient in executing some of those directives by court. But the case, we won him with costs. He's supposed to pay the church quite a lot of money. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, what is happening in Kumi is truly very unfortunate and uncalled for. He has destabilized ministry within the diocese. They have deliberately established those makeshift structures as churches, as church buildings on Church of Uganda land, which is truly unfortunate because the Church of Uganda is a registered entity under the registered trustees of the Church of Uganda. That is trespass of the highest order. Because we are in ministry to preach the gospel, sometimes we don't want to again to go into things of fighting. We don't have the energy that Okunya and his team that they have. For us to believe in reconciliation. And we have always extended an olive branch to him to say, can you come back to ministry? Because you are called to serve. Even where you are preaching the gospel. Can you come back home? We believe if he came back and apologized and said, I give my life to Jesus Christ, I have foregone what I've been doing, these rebellious acts, he will be welcome back home.
Well, Sadiq, we can take more than an hour discussing affairs, but let me just have your parting shot amidst whatever is happening right now in Church of Uganda, where people are supposed to be anointed, people are supposed to be called by God, people are supposed to be led by the Holy Spirit, and people are supposed to obey and humble themselves under the current leadership of the church.
What I can say is my call is for patience. My call is for renewed commitment to our faith. You know, when you are called, when you are a believer, you don't believe in the person of the leader. You believe in the leader. Our leadership now is by the bishops and the Archbishop, Stephen Kazimba, and we are guided by the Constitution and the canons, and that's what we are trying to follow. But Robert, maybe someone, because people now look at chaos,
Ruben is here to take us through sports, yes.
They look at chaos, chaos all through. That is what has been in the media. But there is a lot going on in the church.
I'll have a show for you for the normal. We've been discussing the abnormal.
Yes.
And please don't castigate media. It is always the abnormal.
No. The media is our partner. That's why Archbishop Stephen Kazimba, to be clear on record, he has always called the media as media evangelists. He doesn't call them journalists, because the journalist sometimes can be misled by the devil somewhere. But the purpose of your existence, Robert, is for you to give room for the gospel to be preached. And that's why he calls you a media evangelist. But just a parting shot. Church of Uganda is calm. Ministry is going on well. We want to assure our Christians, our partners all over the world, that ministry is going on well. We are doing mission and outreach, and at the moment we are preparing for the biggest convention ever, the Provincial Prayer Convention, to happen from the 22nd to the 25th of November at Uganda Matters Anglican Museum in Namugongo. That will bring all people from different dioceses from all over the world to come and involve those days from the 22nd to the 25th of November into serious prayer. This country needs to be dedicated to God in prayer, serious prayers, and all these things we are talking about. These people who are trying to cause confusion here and there.
Sadiq, I must let you go. The Bible says, if my people called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I'll hear from heaven and heal the land. May that prayer happen in the Church of Uganda of today. When you go back, send regards to the Archbishop. He's a very strong fan of Arsenal. Please tell him we are doing very well and we hope to do more. Ruben is coming up. Have a lovely time.
Thank you.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso, every Wednesday live in our studios in the heart of Kampala. We have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
All on your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the parish development?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative